Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier kicking off the 20-cent $100,000 guaranteed pick 5 at Woodbine on Queen's Plate Saturday. It's race number 6. It's the Grade 2 King Edward Stakes. Get involved with your very own DRF Bets account. Sign up at drf.com/bet and access $100 in free cash. Let's take a look at this field of one-turn milers on the turf, getting set to run for $175,000 in the Grade 2 King Edward Stakes. Your morning line favorite, Matt, is the old stalwart, the number 3 Tower of Texas, closing in on $1 million in his career. He's been in the exacta 16 of 31, and he won this race way back in 2015.
He's a pretty likable horse. If you like horse racing, the sport itself, it's kind of hard to root against a horse like Tower of Texas. I will say the one thing that just kind of lingers with me. You see that career record at the distance. He's 2 for 11. I happen to think he's better going slightly shorter. I think he's best at 7/8 of a mile. Doesn't mean he can't win a race like this on Saturday. I just think this is the absolute limitation for him, stretching out to that mile. And I think there might be some other horses that are a little bit better suited for this distance.
Like you, I'm a huge fan of this horse, but 2-1 just seems light because I'm not sure he has such an edge over this field that I would want to take a short price. The 8 Delta Prince ships up from New York for trainer Jimmy Jerkins off a 299-day layoff. We haven't seen him since the Bernard Baruch at Saratoga, where there was just a torrential downpour that might have compromised his chances. The race before that at Saratoga, it looked like this beautifully bred horse was going the right way with a 98 buyer win. To me, this layoff is really concerning, but I do know this horse has talent, and it's a pretty confident spot.
Certainly is. I think something that you have to keep in the back of your mind. You brought up the pedigree. We know that his sister was Royal Delta, but the big thing here is it's one thing to come off of a really long layoff, just in general. It's another thing to come off a really long layoff at Woodbine, going a one-turn mile. That stretch run goes on forever and a day, and I wonder if he's going to get to a point where we still have an 1/8 of a mile to go, and he's starting to feel the effects of that layoff. If that's the case, I think he's going to be in a tough spot.
Let's take a look at the Timeform U.S. Pace Projector. Trainer Roger Atfield has your favorite Tower of Texas. We're expecting him to come from last. He also's got Shakamat, who's expected to make the early lead. And when Shakamat gets an easy lead, as he did in the Grade 3 Tropical Turf at Gulfstream, his final start as a 4-year-old, he is capable of running big races. When he has to go faster or is denied the lead, not so much. That Pace Projector is promising. I don't like his recent form.
I mean, I don't trust this horse as far as I could throw him, but you brought up the big piece that, I mean, there's a scenario where if you allow him to get out there and dictate things in a relatively soft fashion, he can make fields pay. Having said that, I don't want any part of him.
Ring Weekend is such a cool horse. He's banked $1.5 million. A lot of folks forget he won the Tampa Bay Derby on dirt in 2014. He is a Grade 1 winner on the turf, but his recent form is a little bit suspect. Ram Motion is telling everybody this horse is still training like his old self. His last 2 races, though, beaten at short prices, and he got slow numbers.
I thought this horse was done at the beginning of last year, and he went on to have a pretty darn good 2017 campaign. Now he's come back. Seems like he's going off form. I think he might be getting down toward the end. He's 7 years old. He's done a lot on the racetrack. He's banked over $1.5 million. It would be fitting if he made me look like a fool on Saturday. I'm going to be against him. Look, I wouldn't be disappointed if I lost in a horse like Ring Weekend and just was the one that beat me because he's a cool, neat horse, but I've got to side against him from a gambling standpoint.
Gary Barber bought Conquest Panthera for $100,000 in 2016. He more than doubled that back in purse money last year. This year he's 0 for 3, but he's been his usual solid Conquest Panthera self. Beaten favorite last time out in the Connaught Cup, but a good enough effort. And the time before that, he just got wired by Blind Ambition in the Elusive Quality.
You know, Mark Cassey said something earlier in the week, and I agree with him because I don't know what to do either at this point. He goes, I don't know what his best distance is. I think it might be 7/8. This mile might be a little bit too far, but then any shorter than 7 might be a little bit too sharp for him. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of where he falls into. He's got a ton of ability. We've always known that, but it just feels like he's sort of a tweener. He's lost in no man's land as far as a true distance, and unfortunately, that's kind of a bad situation to be in.
Hollywood Hideaway is the longest shot on the morning line at 20-1, but he's run some sneaky good races. I liked his effort in the Connaught Cup going 7 furlongs last June. He was only beaten a length and a half in this race last year. He then followed that up with a 100 Beyer performance down in New York. Last time out, a little bit disappointed that he was beaten as the favorite, but he was coming off a 7-month layoff against Pumpkin Rumble, who validated that performance when second in the graded Singspiel with a 90 Beyer. I think this horse is a sleeper's chance to crack the board.
And the fact that Barb Minshall is willing to just wheel right back into a spot like this off of what looks like such a dull running line, that to me is a positive. You're right. Hollywood Hideaway is a horse that if you just needed to take a stab, he is not impossible in a spot like this.
Let's take a look at our top selections in the first leg of this 20-cent, $100,000 guaranteed pick 5. You're going with Caribou Club for Tom Proctor. All this horse has done, he's won 4 out of his last 5 races on the turf, including that score over this course in the Connaught Cup.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. Going into the Connaught Cup, I thought he was probably a little bit on the cheap side. I didn't think he was quite going to class up, and you see that he's running against a number of common foes. You got Tower of Texas, you got Conquest Panthera in here. He had a pretty perfect trip, all things considered, in that Connaught Cup. But I have to be honest, the way that he was willing, he had to sit momentarily, turn him for home, and then when everything split and parted, he went right through nicely. The way that he finished, I never got the impression that Tower of Texas was going to be able to run him down, even with an extra 1/8 of a mile to work with here. I just kind of wonder if this is a horse that now is a 4-year-old. He's done nothing wrong in those 2 starts. I wonder if he's just sort of come into his own. I think he's going to get a good trip in here, and he's going to be a pretty square number, 6-1 on the morning line. I'd take that right now.
He is razor sharp, no doubt about it. But you did mention the perfect trip he got last time out en route to that big Beyer speed figure. First Premio got a nice trip as well in his most recent start at Churchill Downs. That was a very weak field. But you know something? He kind of deserved a class drop after being in tough for a while. And I think the addition of blinkers really got him more motivated early and got him focused to seal the deal because he was never in danger of losing. I thought it was a nice performance for this horse. All 3 of his turf races are good. And I'm hoping the Florent Giroux can keep him relatively close to the pace here. Maybe he wants a little bit more ground than the mile, but I think First Premio is actually going to drift a little bit off this 4-1 morning line. I'm hoping the blinkers make all the distance. Your opinion on this fella?
Yeah, you know, you brought up, I like the fact that all 3 of his turf races are all good. He's yet to run a poor race on the grass. The thing that gave me sort of cause for pause was what you alluded to. That field is just so bad that he beat down at Churchill Downs. He's going to be facing much better, but if you look at it from a fig standpoint, he's paired up Beyer tops with 97s. If you think a forward move comes here, and if Florent Giroux can get him close to the pace, don't want to be coming from 4 or 5 out of it. If you're sitting there second or third, I think he's got an interesting outside chance.
You like Caribou Club to keep the momentum going. Anybody else you use in the pick 5?
I'm going to go 7, 3, and 8 in this spot. I guess the real interesting thing for me here would be from a multi-race standpoint. I think Tower of Texas is an interesting one, but this might be that race. You know, we talked about it in one of the other races where I couldn't separate the 2 horses at Belmont Park as far as multi-races are concerned. This might be one where I'm saying, you know what, my lone A is going to be Caribou Club, and if he loses, so be it. I took a shot here. If he wins, I get a little bit of separation from the rest of the field.
From a single race standpoint, I'm going 4, 8, and 7. I might lean on the 4 and the 8. Just something tells me that despite the layoff, this Delta Prince is going to be ready. Jimmy Jerkin, such a sharp trainer and a fairly conservative one at that. Shipping him up here off almost a 300-day layoff, I'm expecting that horse to run well in the Grade 2 King Edward. Again, it kicks off the 20-cent, $100,000 guaranteed pick 5. A bet you can play with DRF bets, and you get it with $100 in free cash. Learn more at drf.com/bet. Approximate post time for the King Eddie, race number 6 at Woodbine on Queens Plate Saturday, 2:53 Eastern. Good luck.